Susan Glasser, it comes against the backdrop of the thing that has consumed Washington for weeks now. The very focus of your piece here in The New Yorker, which is on the continued fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein case files. It's titled, "Trump Redefines the Washington Scandal." And in it, you write in part, quote, "The scandal is not the revelation that Trump was friends with a sexual monster who exploited underage women, since that's not a revelation. Nor is it that the president lied to the American public, something he does with remarkable frequency. No, the novelty here is that millions of Americans who knew that Trump was friends with such a horrid man and voted for him anyway now appear to have decided that in a choice between Trump and a favorite conspiracy theory, they may just stick with the conspiracy theory. The nearly unwavering fealty of Trump's MAGA base has powered him through all of his previous scandals. What does it reveal about the state of this political mesa-alliance that a botched cover-up of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein might be the thing that finally drives a wedge between them? You're basically asking here the question that I have been asking since we all started on this in 2015, which is, when will the laws of political gravity finally apply? Is this it?
Well, I would say anyone who has a definitive answer hasn't been watching the story for the last 10 years. If January 6th is not enough, if challenging an election is not enough that you lost, then obviously we don't really have conventional laws of political gravity. But I think this point about Jeffrey Epstein, first of all, the idea that it's news now, right? It bears the hallmarks in many ways of the kind of scandal we've seen a million times. I mean, cue Whitewater, cue Watergate, anything that involves really not just the underlying issue, but the cover-up, the questions. We've got the anonymous finger pointing and shouting behind closed doors of administration officials. We've got the president desperate to change the story. So on the surface, it feels like one of those Washington scandals. We know how that works. But I think what's fascinating to me here is that it's a story about Donald Trump, and is he a leader or a follower of this MAGA movement? And, right now you see him, I think, paying the price for chasing around lies and conspiracy theories for years because he thought that's what the people wanted. And, I just think it says something truly, deeply awful about the state of our politics, right? I mean, this is the story of all stories. I mean, let's talk about that Paramount merger. Let's talk about, it's not just a president who wants to meddle, who would love to control the press, as all presidents do. Donald Trump and his lawyers are at war with the very principle of independent agencies. How can you have a business community in this country that thinks it's okay when the rule of law depends upon the president himself? I mean, there's so many more important issues on some level to talk about. It tells you everything that this is the conspiracy theory that we're talking about.
Well, and David Drucker, again, especially Susan, makes a great point. This is the story instead of the FCC and everything that's going on there, Paramount, because NBC reporting has shown, and we repeated it time and again, NBC reporting has shown that there's no there with the Epstein files. It's something that Tom Winter's been saying for 2 years. It's something that Ken Delaney's been saying. It's something that David Rhodes has been saying. That said, don't tell that to the MAGA base, because, of course, if the media is saying nothing to see here as well, that doesn't exactly help President Trump. But I want to split something. Maybe you can help explain this for us. There's a Gallup poll, new Gallup poll out, that shows the president down to 37% overall. But those numbers are driven completely by the independent numbers falling off the cliff. You look at the Republican numbers. The president is still sitting at 91% among Republicans in a poll that has him at 37%. So if he's sitting at 91%, again, that's the line they're looking at inside the White House. So you have, yes, very loud MAGA influencers that are out talking about it. You have members of Congress who are talking about it, Republican members of Congress. And these Republican members of Congress are hearing from constituents. But if you look at that number where the president's sitting at about 90% among Republicans, they're listening to a small subset of those Republicans, the loudest Republicans, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And sometimes we forget or we don't emphasize enough that the Republican electorate is bigger than the MAGA base. It's just that MAGA base gives the president an unusually high floor. So you look at those numbers with the independents. It's why the Republicans who are actually on the ballot next year are concerned but it's a reason why the president doesn't necessarily have to be concerned. What I think is very interesting about this, though, and, you know, Susan was talking about this to some degree here, is that Trump is an unusual political figure who was able to sort of hold together a base of anti-establishment voters, irregular voters, along with a lot of normie, regular Republican voters, even if a lot of those are former Democrats because of his command of cultural issues. But one, he's been able to do that in part because he doesn't just lead the base, he takes cues from them. It's part of the reason he's in this Epstein mess. I don't know that the president cared about it either way, but when he sees an issue that is resonant with his base, he just sort of collects it. But the other thing is it shows us what the party is going to have to deal with in 2028 in particular. When you're going to have another Republican nominee, they're not going to be Donald Trump. And how do they hold together this coalition that Trump has been able to build, but has been so much based around him and who he is? And look, we've got some recent history. In 2008 and 2012, President Barack Obama is able to put together, as you were discussing earlier, Joe, the coalition of the Ascendant. Democrats just thought that that was theirs, that he created it and that they could take possession of it. And little by little, it either splinters a little or it thins out as voters change their mind or irregular voters decide that, this politician is just like the people that came before Obama. I'm going to stay home. This is something that the next Republican nominee is going to have to balance. How do I make normal voters who don't want chaos and just want good governance happy while keeping those voters who believe in the deep state happy that I'm doing something about it? It's a very difficult tightrope to walk.
Yeah, I think you're right to forecast ahead to 2028 and what happens to the MAGA coalition that has not fractured in any politically seismic way in the entire era of Trump. But I think Joe brings up that really amazing point of dissonance between the 30-some-odd% approval rating that Trump has, but then that 89% approval rating among Republicans. And yet, the third data point there that I find so fascinating is that other polls have shown us that Republicans and Democrats alike do agree that the Epstein case is being mishandled by this White House. So how do you square that trio of polling points?
Well, this is a very rare instance of harmonic convergence in Washington, right, where Republicans and Democrats, for different reasons, may find some common ground, right? Not common ground over policy, not common ground over how to fix the nation's problems, but common ground on how to make Donald Trump's life miserable. And right now, Republicans are doing it because they're concerned about the base that is convinced that the Epstein files are scandalous and there's something that's being hidden. Democrats are piling on because it's just good fun. Right now, obviously this is a horrific case involving horrific instances of crimes. But from the Democratic point of view, a 6-year-old case, this guy's been dead for 6 years now, suddenly becomes the most important thing in the world. Why? Because they can, of course, extract a little bit of political pound of flesh from Donald Trump, who played with conspiracy theories and is now getting burned.